Good morning, everybody. My name is John Gustavsen. I'm coming from North Cape in Finnmark. I'm a writer and journalist, but my first education was as a teacher. Today we are talking about salmon farming as a threat to nature and future, and I'm glad to be together with you at this finsk-ugriske World Congress. Edwin Dagsvold travels to Hammerfest one autumn day in 2014 to tell about how fishermen in western Finnmark experience the encounter with the salmon industry. Fish farming is destroying the seabed and provides an empty sea for us small vessel fishermen, said Dagsvold. Throughout his life, Dagsvold has practiced small vessel fishing on Zealand. The fisherman is desperate about the prospects for those who will take over as fishermen, develop knowledge, create a sustainable future, and live with a decent economy. Local fishermen along the entire Norwegian coast experience the same as Dagsvold. The wild fish disappear, the seabed is destroyed by spill and excrements, and harmful gas is formed. Dagsvold must now travel by water 3 to 4 hours from home and out to the sea to survive financially. Life has become more dangerous, the economy tighter, and the future uncertain. At June the 4th, Dagsvold confirms that the severe situation is still present. 50 years ago, enterprising players started farming salmon in the floating facilities. An industry for the districts was launched. The Norwegian coast was considered a gift from God. The number of fish farms accelerated. From 1980 to 1990, the number increased from 10 to 150 in the two northernmost counties. Some discovered that there was big money inside. In the 5th volume of Norway's Fisheries and Coastal History, we can study the development. In the 1970s, it was said that fish farm facilities should serve as a support industry along the coast. Production of salmon and sea trout was modest. In 1980, production was 8,000 tons, but then increased rapidly to 151,000 tons in 1990. Increased production generated sky-high revenues. Investors smelled good times. The number of lobbyists increased, and politicians came under pressure. A game of power is developed. Agents and advertisers fight together. It is important to convince politicians of the potential, but also be ready to face criticism. Norway has become a rich country, not least due to petroleum revenues. Now a new gold-edged industry is in sight, and from 2000 onwards it develops with strong production and tremendous income. In 2020, Norway produced 36 million meals per day. Norway will now contribute to ensuring the global population's need for food. But will the poor be able to buy the salmon? Salmon production increased from 175,000 tons in 1993 to 960,000 tons in 2009 and 1.1 million tons in 2020, with a turnover of 72 billion Norwegian crowns. People along the coast believed that the first decades that they could take part in the riches. It was played on that the sea was chilly, clear and clean, and assured that pollution would not present a problem. Eventually, many realized that they had been led astray. Company with addresses far from the coastal communities gained ownership of the facilities. Foreign interests came in and took control. Farming had become a feverish industry and now took a chance on behalf of nature. Some players ran a speculative game and sold out with huge profits. Example, Norwegian Cermaq was sold to Japanese Mitsubishi, the well-known car company, in 2014. Norwegian 8.88 billion crowns was put on the table. Did anybody ask if the Tokyo company would be interested in protecting the fjords in northern Norway from damage? Foreign capital sees Norway as a land of freedom. Government and private individuals are willing to sell everything from the seabed to the mountain peaks. Distributed over about 700 facilities, there are close to 4,000 salmon cages along the coast. It is claimed that the volume in each cage, only 2.5% is salmon, and that it's having a great time. Veterinarian Bergljot Børresen claims in her book Fiskenes ukjente liv, The Unknown Life of the Fish, that fish is closely related to us humans and that it is able to feel pain, curiosity, anxiety, and joy. Lice infestations is a growing problem, and the infectious viral disease ISA, infectious salmon anemia, is spreading at a dangerous rate. Marine biological feed is in short supply, and therefore Norway must import soy. Feed from fish meal and fish oil is increasingly being replaced by plant-based raw materials, soy and rapeseed oil. Today, 70–80% are plant-based ingredients. Some of this comes from the Amazon, where the local ethnic groups experience the same as in Norway. They get to see little of the adventurous riches that go into the bank accounts of the investors. Instead, they lose the land and security that the great forest could give them. No later than May 28th, we hear on the radio that the Amazon forest, which until now have absorbed CO2 and helped save the globe, are in danger. Norway has thus become a major player in global food imperialism. In addition to soy, Norway also imports anchovies caught on industrial vessels. But it is far from the forests and coasts on Latin America to the fjords of Troms and Finnmark. On one thing is similar, though. Minorities live here in Norway: Norwegian Finns, Kvens, and Sami. The increasing number of salmon cages leads to large discharges of excrements, spill, and wasted feed. A risk report from the Institute of Marine Research 2019 estimates that the emission from each salmon locality are approximately 1,000 tons per year. In addition, one points to harmful materials such copper, cadmium, DDT, PCB and plastic. Micro and nanoplastics enter the salmon meat during feeding. In a total, 500 million kilos of excrements and sludge are discharged per year from Norwegian facilities. The economic development has led to Norway's having several dozen salmon players with assets over 1 billion kroner. In the ranking of the country's 400 richest, number 16 is from northern Norway. The owner of Nordlaks has increased his fortune from 3.4 to 12 billion kroners in 5 years. The wealth is built on free access to the sea areas along the coast. In November 2019, a government-appointed committee proposed a ground rent tax of Norwegian 7 billion kroners. Why? We have a good experience with such a tax from the petroleum and power station, the proposal said. The presentation was met by strong opposition in various channels. When the proposal came up in the Storting, the Norwegian parliament, it was voted down. The Nordlaks owner thus has a fortune that is almost twice as large. The ground rent tax was to ensure that the farming municipalities received some of the giant income. Now they are left with small change and few jobs. The aquaculture fund of 2015 goes to municipalities and county municipalities that open up new locations. Amount 2021, 1 billion Norwegian kroners. The fund is thus pressuring several municipalities to open sites for fish farms. Local fishermen have had to give up their jobs. We lack an overview that shows the damage to the marine environment. But fishermen and coastal residents have long seen the danger, as Dagsvoll is an example of. The biggest bill will be carried by future generations, but will they be able to forgive us who were unable to stop the destruction? Multinational companies have created plenty of examples of indigenous peoples being deprived or having their livelihoods reduced. In peace and conflict research, this is referred to as structural violence. In 2006, a solution was proposed that secured the coastal population in Finnmark to rights to fish. The reports, The Right to Fish in the Sea of Finnmark, concluded that coastal fishermen, regardless of ethnicity, had the first right to use the sea. The population had high expectations for very thorough work. But in the hour of the decision, the work was put off. One of those who were disappointed with the decision was the leader of the work on the report, Professor Carsten Smith. The controversy of Norwegian aquaculture is unlikely to subside in the years to come. In 2010, for example, the Director of Nature Management proposed that the Norwegian aquaculture industry should be cut in half in consideration for the environment and the wild salmon that swim towards the rivers. But it did not take long before the head of research at the Institute of Marine Research replied that production could be increased tenfold if conditions were right. The hard drive towards the fjords in Finnmark was confirmed in 2014 when the Conservative Party's fisheries policy spokesman from Finnmark in the Storting proposed at least a tenfold increase in Finnmark. Politics and research can, strangely enough, suddenly come together. Much of the research work on Norwegian salmon farming is of a high standard, but there are many indications that the so-called contract research takes place on the premises of big capital. The super profit that the breeders have reaped has led to a cancer-like development. 1. Genetic influences and escapes. 2. Pollution and emissions. 3. Disease, including viruses and parasites. 4. Occupation of fjord area. 5. Damage from feed and excrements. 6. Gas formations. 7. Birth death. The hope for sustainable development has been shattered. The precautionary principle has been abandoned at the example of nature. But a positive development could have been possible if the facilities in the sea had been closed and feed waste, excrements and chemicals taken care of. Farming facilities on land are another possibility. It will require very large land areas, as we have seen in Galicia, Spain, and could lead to damage to nature and the environment. Neither economic nor ecological costs are calculated. The political actors in municipalities and counties have easily been overtaken by influencing agents and political party speakers. The needs, demands and social life of the local population come second. But we have an instrument that is little used: OECD guidelines for multinational companies. The countries that adhere to the guidelines commit themselves to implementing principles and standards for responsible businesses in accordance with the applicable laws and internationally recognized standards. Some specific guidelines. Companies should contribute to economic, social and environmental progress with a view to creating sustainable development in local communities. Companies should carry out risk-based due diligence and assessment. They should map, prevent and limit actual and potential negative consequences with their activities. Companies should ensure that they publish accurate information on all matters relating to their business, structure, financial situation, results, ownership and management with a reasonable time. Information should be adapted to the requirement for confidentiality in business activities, competition, considerations and other matters. There are great expectations internationally for what the sea can mean for the future. In the OECD report, The Ocean Economy in 2050, one believes in a six-fold increase in food production in Norway by 2050. But this is assumed that the current environmental and disease challenges are solved and a predictable regulatory regime. Could these hopes have led to the Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg being appointed the UN's High Patron of the Marine Decade, Alliance to the UN Decade of Marine Research in the new year? Opinion is growing. Reports of destroyed seas are pouring in, and fears of ruined future are very real. Many view Norway with concern. So far, the Norwegian state has not been able to control developments in aquaculture. The penultimate answer is therefore measures no. The last answer, the power of the people. And to all of you, I thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to see the result and hear from you later. Bye bye.